Hi friends! So this week I wanted to try out some easy painting techniques. Like the ones that anyone can do. I know there's acrylic pouring and stuff like that, but I wanted to try some lesser known ones. As you can tell from my background, I've already finished filming these. And let me just say, this was an emotional roller coaster. But it all comes out okay in the end, so stick around. The first one I'm going to try is something called swirl painting. What you need for this is a canvas, but I'm going to use this piece of cardboard to practice, flat paintbrushes, and acrylic paint. I'm going to try to use up some of my oldest paint that is getting really chunky and really needs to be put out of its misery. And I think for this first one, I'm going to try warm colors, like some of this strawberry red and orange. I'm just plopping out some colors randomly on the board, and then squirting a little bit of white around here and there. Then you just take the brush and make this sort of swirly motion back and forth through the paint. The first swirls look pretty good, but I don't know what to do with the big globs of paint on my brush at the end, so I just left it there and kept going. I'm not sure if this is what you're supposed to do, because all of the swirls after that don't seem as marbled. The paint seems more mixed together, so I'm wondering if you're supposed to wipe off the brush after each swirl. This first painting isn't bad, but I think I can do better. Maybe make it less monochromatic. So I'm going to try again. And this time, I'm going to use a few more colors. I still chose colors that would look okay if they blended together, because I don't want to make poop swirls. And then I added some white. Whoa, too much white. Let me just scrape some of that up. And now, let's swirl. This first corner area over here looks pretty good, but don't worry, I screw that up later. And I did wipe the brush off after about halfway through, but I can't actually tell if that made a difference. Then, for some unknown reason, I decided to go back over the one corner that looks different and completely eliminate the purple. Side note, so much paint ends up on the sides of the canvas. With this one done, I guess it's a little bit better. There's more of the colored striations that I was looking for, so I think I'm ready to move on to a canvas. But actually, I'm going to use a canvas board thing because I have a ton of these. And in a haze of misplaced confidence, I decided I didn't need to put any paper down. I just elevated my canvas by putting it on top of a paint box. So for this one, obviously I wanted to try rainbow. I'm working in sections, putting down a couple of colors at a time. Like for red, I used bright red and bubblegum pink. Then a couple of different oranges, yellow and yellowy green, bright green and turquoise, bright and dark blue, and light and dark purple. I'm missing that paper right about now because I got paint everywhere. But the painting itself, I'm just not sure how I feel about it. So I set it aside with the others to dry and to come back to tomorrow. The next day, here they are all dry. They're okay, but they just didn't come out as interesting as I thought they would. So I'm going to try to jazz them up a little bit. For the red one, I used some Posca markers to add an outline around each swirl, and then I added highlights to make it look kind of cartoony. And I don't know if I love it, but I like it better than before. I wish there were more variations of the color in it, but the way it came out kind of looks like some kind of candy. For the bluey one, it kind of reminds me of water or the ocean, so I decided to try this iridescent medium. The medium itself is kind of thick, so I don't even know if this is how you're supposed to use it, but it's definitely really pretty. I wasn't going for anything specific with this, just sort of varying the line width and adding it where I thought it looked good. And I really like this one. The iridescence gives it some motion, like when you look at it straight on, it kind of looks silver, but if you look at it from any other angle, it's super sparkly. Now this one, I've decided how I feel about it. It's not colorful enough. I'm sure that makes no sense, the full rainbow not being colorful enough, but I feel like the swirls need more color variation in them. If you get close enough, you can kind of see the different blues or greens, but from far away, it just needs more. So for this, I'm going to use glitter Posca markers because I want to add color, but I also really liked that sparkle. I went through each swirl and tried to pick areas to emphasize with the pens, like the darkest red areas or the areas of yellow inside the green swirls. And I'm back to not knowing how I feel about this one. I'm just kind of meh about it. It feels like it's still missing something to me. Or maybe it's just because I made it. I might need to set it aside for a week or so before I know if I like it or not. This next one is an absolute disaster, and if you'd like to skip it, here's where it gets better. The next type of painting that I wanted to try is where you use Sharpies and alcohol to make a sort of blendy watercolor-like painting. I decided to test this on a little baby canvas from the Dollar Tree, and I also decided to try using alcohol from an eyedropper and a spray bottle. The video I watched used an eyedropper, but I felt like a spray bottle might apply the alcohol more evenly. I threw a bunch of colors down on the canvas, which I noticed was not stretched very tight. It was dipping in the center, and I could see the outline of the wooden frame. I tried dropping on alcohol, and since the canvas isn't taut, the alcohol immediately pooled in the center, and I ended up blotting some of it up. I tried spraying alcohol on the other half, and after a few areas didn't really blend, I added a bit more alcohol to those areas. After looking at both results, I decided I wanted to use a spray bottle, since I wanted to make an actual picture and I didn't want it too runny. I switched to a canvas board though so that it would be flat and the alcohol wouldn't run. And I busted out my big pack of Sharpies. I spent 45 minutes drawing out flowers of all kinds of shapes and sizes, trying to fill the canvas with color, but not worrying too much about how the colors blended, because that's what the alcohol was supposed to do. When it came time for the alcohol, I sprayed and waited. Some areas blended, but others didn't. So I sprayed those areas again. And the areas that weren't blended before now blended a bit, but so did the areas that were already blendy. So I tried again and again, and I just couldn't get it to look even. Some areas were super washed out, but others still looked like a drawing. I was getting super frustrated, and in a rage, I just used the eyedropper to drop alcohol all over the canvas. Then the color started to really run, so I got fully fed up, and also slightly drunk from the smell, and I just left. I came back the next day when it was dry. And this was a total fail, and I didn't really have any time left to try again. This was my last night of filming, and so far I hadn't really made anything that I loved. I thought about scrapping this entire video idea and trying to film something else fast, but ultimately I decided to just push through with one more easy painting idea. But first, we have to cover up this mess. I am going to reuse this canvas board rather than throw it in the trash, but these flowers did not want to go without a fight. So 3 coats of gesso later, this is as good as it's going to get. Now for this third easy painting, I'm going to paint a color-blocked landscape. I've done a couple of these before, but this time I'm going to turn an actual reference picture into a landscape. This is the picture I'm going to use, and I'm just going to sketch out some lines around the chunks of color. Obviously, it's pretty loose, and I'm going for big blocks of color. I don't want to add these clouds in there, so I'm just going to ignore them. I also tested some colors out digitally to make sure I liked it before I committed. Then I sketched those same lines out onto my canvas. Even if you can't draw, this is pretty easy because they're loose and just swaths of color. Next, it's time to paint in the blocks. I'm trying to use up my old paint still for this, rather than mix any new paint. So I altered a few colors a little bit, and for some areas like the sky and the water, I had to do a couple of coats of paint on one block until it was opaque, and then I just lightened that same paint and used it for another section. blue Sharpie on the bottom is still fighting for its life. So it took like 8 coats to cover it with this orange, but I did eventually get rid of it entirely. Last, I used a white Posca to add the foam to the edge of the water. I made a few thicker areas here and there just to give it a little bit of life. And this one is done. Finally, a painting I absolutely love. It looks more dusky than the original, which is more sunrisey, but it's so pretty. And it makes me want to head to the beach. Most things make me want to head to the beach, actually. But that really is all I had time for this week. So what do you think? Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.